What's up, people? It's John here from JJSC Tech. How are you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a good Sunday so far. It's East Coast time, it's 7:30. Hopefully you guys are having a good Sunday night. And we're not gonna even waste too much time. The title of this stream is Sony in trouble? Is Sony in trouble? Now, why did I name the stream this? Sony is a really big, major company, especially in the realm of cameras, definitely in prosumer cameras. They got like the industry in almost a chokehold when it comes to photography cameras. It's still like Canon and Sony battling for the #1 spot. You got your Sony diehard fans and you got your Canon diehard fans. Canon has really good lenses. Sony's have really good cameras and lenses as well. But Canon has they have a long time making lenses, and they built a fan base on their EF mounts, and now they're transitioning over to RF mounts. But we're going to focus on the video aspect, not the prosumer video aspect, but more so, I don't know if I'll call it professional, but yeah, not the consumer aspect, but more the prosumer aspect. Yeah, that's a better way to phrase this. A lot has been going on. A lot has been going on with these companies. Blackmagic, Red dropped their prices of the Komodo and the Komodo X, and Canon as well dropped the C80, which is a pretty good price, and they dropped the price of the C70. Let's not waste time. Let's go over here. So we're not talking about stuff about the ZV-E10 because that's a whole different market. We're talking about the run and gun shooters. Those people that are a one-man band that heavily relies on autofocus. Now, autofocus, you need a good photo lens, and Canon and Sony have really good photo lenses. So let's look at things like the FX6. Well, let's not look at the FX6s yet, but let's look at the FX3. Now, the FX3 has been heavily acclaimed as one of the best cameras, one of the best prosumer cameras that Sony has. A lot of people love it because of the form factor. It shoots full frame. It is light. It has really good autofocus. It has really good low light, and it has 10-bit 422, as well as pretty good S-Log. So they are in the top, and Sony fanboys love to talk about the creator. That's the Hollywood film that was shot using the FX3, but it wasn't solely the FX3. There were other cameras that were used to shoot the creator, but I'm not taking away from it. It's a good camera. It's a pretty good camera. And especially when you pair this with a G Master lens, the autofocus is great. It is wonderful. Now, you can have autofocus feature with the other lenses like Tamron or the Sigma, but to get the best, or to get the 100% most out of the autofocus feature, it's best to do a G Master lens. And the G Master lenses are pretty expensive, and they're pretty sharp. So let's see something else. So this is 36. Let's do the Canon C70. Now, the Canon C70 as well is a really good camera. It is in the same boat as the Sony FX3. It is pretty light. How much, let's see, how much does this weigh? How much does this weigh? Let's go to specs. $15 stops of dynamic range. How much does it weigh? Because I know this is pretty light. 1.4 pounds. And the C70 is 2.58 pounds. So two of these are kinda in the same category. I mean, yeah, this got 15 stops. Can I compare? Where's that compare button? I guess I'll do it right here. So I would say two of these are in the same category. Reason being, both of them are not fully professional. They're more prosumer. Reason being, it's not because they don't have a good image. It's because of like the inputs and the professional workflow. HDMI isn't cutting it, especially with the team. Now, let me not focus on a team workflow, but let me focus on the solo shooter, the run and gun shooter, those who are doing weddings, those who are doing baby showers, those who are doing things that require a gimbal, the housing market and real estate, stuff like that. Yeah. So these cameras are more suited for that. And both of them use a SD card. So these are the bare minimum that you would need for a really good solo run and gun camera. So this has dual slot, and this has, I think this has one slot. Yeah, but the major thing that you're going to be looking at is weight and autofocus. So Sony has their automatic continuous autofocus, and Sony has their autofocus as well. Where do you have that? Why don't they put everything together? Autofocus. Thank you. Boom. Okay, phase detect autofocus. And they give you the point. So, and also automatic continuous servo autofocus. Anyone that's familiar with Sony, they know that the Sony's autofocus is pretty, not pretty, it's really good. Let's do Canon C70 versus the Sony FX3. And I definitely won't be playing any audio because content creators, yeah, they're really serious about this thing when it comes to copyright. All right, let's see if he does any comparisons with the image. This is the Canon C70. Oh, come on, man. Okay, cool. Let's do the side by side, my boy. All right. So depending on what you like, oh, you can't see which is which. Okay, on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, two different colors. The left-hand side is more yellowish. The right-hand side is a bit less contrasty and a bit more leaning towards the magenta side. Left-hand side is more greenish. I wish it was the same frame so we can like here you see, look at the left and look at the right. The left looks kind of blown out. The right seems to be keeping a bit more of that dynamic range. This is actually great. Can you guess which camera is which? Now this is between the FX3 and this is between the Canon C70. Let me go to a different frame. There's no more frames. I'm gonna find a different video. I'm gonna find a better video. But on the left is the Sony FX3 and on the right is the Canon C70. Kind of surprising because Sony is more known for their magenta look. But here Canon is a bit more magenta and the Canon looks a bit more true. But this all depends on the lenses that are used as well. But both of them have no issue with autofocus whatsoever. Boom. Come on, my man. All right, Griffin. These are the same people that were here. And let's just, yes, thank you. Boom. Commercial, thank you. Skip. All right. Look at the left. And look at the right. Look at the hair. I need you guys to see the full image. I need you guys to see the full image. All right, cool. That's better. All right, so at the bottom, as you see, it reveals which camera is which. So as you see, the C70 image is a bit more magenta, which is really interesting. And the FX3 is a bit more on the greenish side. Let's see if we keep going. Now, I would put two of these cameras in the same class. Before the FX, I think, well, before the, not the FX, the Canon was a bit more expensive, but it dropped in price. We're going to see how much it dropped in price because it's making room for the C80. And we're going to take a look at the C80 as well. So he's showcasing the autofocus for Canon. If you're familiar with any of these cameras, you know that autofocus is not really an issue when it comes to these two cameras. Now, the reason I don't use autofocus is because it kind of lacks creativity, because I like to rack focus. That's just me personally, and it depends on what you shoot. Now, if I am using something, if I'm doing something like a corporate interview, I still use cine cameras because the talent isn't moving as much, but I can see how autofocus is really beneficial, especially if you have like a talent that's animated, that's moving their hands when they speak and etc. Or if you have like a kid it's like bouncing off the walls and moving back and forth and can't keep still. I understand how autofocus will play a significant role in a corporate interview, and as well as if you're doing like tracking work, like moving and you're following the talent, if they're like running or if they're sports and etc. Autofocus will be beneficial, but don't depend on it. You don't have to depend on autofocus because it will definitely kind of stump your creativity. And the other issue with autofocus, for some people, it's not really a big deal, but the focus hunting, but Sony has been, I don't know what Sony has been doing, because someone can move in front of the subject and Sony will find that focus right back. Canon does the same thing as well. AI is a crazy thing. A lot of these issues that we were having before with like the T2i and the T3i, we aren't having as much. But again, you are limited to photo glass. You can't use cinema glass with autofocus. Just keep that in mind and remember that. All right, so let's go to why I think Sony's in problems. Because everyone is dropping prices. FX3, it used to be $38, so it dropped $200 on B&H. And the C70 dropped $1,000. This thing used to be $5,500. Now it's $4,500. And if you add like a T2.8, you get 6,000. Yada 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 yada. 24 to 105. Is this the new lens? Yes, this is the new 24 to 105 f2.8. Beautiful lens. Never used it, but I've seen a whole lot of videos about it, and this is a great lens right here. If I was using RF lenses, I would definitely try to pick this one up. All right, so let's see the issue. So FX6. Now the FX6 is in a weird position now. A very weird position. Now at this price range, what you get with the FX6 is pretty good. Now you get more pro features, you get internal NDs, you get the same great autofocus as the FX3. It's kind of like the same sensor as the FX3. You get the SDI port. I don't care about onboard audio because I always use external audio, so that's not a benefit to me. So it might be a great benefit to you. You can do some great streaming gigs with the FX6. Let's see, 16-bit RAW. It's a full frame, same thing as the FX3. NDs, internal NDs, built-in NDs, which is good. Has great low light, dual sensitivity, same 15 stops of dynamic range. How much did the C70 got? And also the C70 is Super 35. What's the dynamic range of this? Bit depth is 12-bit. Dynamic. Thank you. 16 stops of dynamic range. So it's one stop of dynamic range over the FX3 and FX6. Now the reason this dropped in price was for this camera right here. The C80. Now this took the new price of, well, this took the previous price of the C70, and the C70 dropped $1,000. So this is basically like the C70.2 is basically, should I dare say, the FX6 of the C70. It's not the same sensor. It's full frame. It has triple ISO. So the FX3 and the FX6 has dual ISO, and this has 3 ISO. So it's the same as the C400. I don't know why they still have the C400. I don't know why Canon did this, because the C400, I'll show you the C400. Yes, the C400 has professional ports, but so as the C80, and we'll get to that. Specs, ISO sensitivity 100 to 102,000. It has dual slots for media, for memory cards, and it has SDIs, 12G, 3G, and HDMI. Cook. This is a full frame as well, BSI stacked CMOS sensor. It also has NDs. Internal NDs, it does have that. Built-in NDs. And I think it has in-body stabilization. Yeah, image stabilizer, image stabilization, digital 5-axis. So this is weird because if you look at the C80, it's basically a smaller version of that camera. Specs, image stabilization, 5-axis. It also has dual SD slots, which is good. As you see, it has 12G SDI output as well, and an HDMI output as well. So the C70 only had the HDMI, and this has the 12G SDI. So this can work in a more professional workflow. It's also full frame BSI stacked as well, and it has internal NDs. So this is in strict competition to the FX6. And the FX6 is an older camera, and it's $500 more. It's $500 more. Now, some people might say the form factor is pretty good with the FX6, and it's pretty light, which I do agree. I do like the form factor of the FX6. It's 2 pounds, the body, versus this camera right here, which is 2.87 pounds. Yeah. So the FX6 is lighter. But this is a newer camera, smaller form factor, because people really loved, or they still love the FX3 because of the form factor. You can just simply put it on a gimbal. Don't got to worry too much about it. It's pretty good in battery life. You can put a nice lens on there, nice G Master lens, and you're pretty good to go. With this, you can do the same thing. I mean, you can do the same thing with the FX6, but it was kind of tedious because of the size of that thing. Yeah. So what is Sony going to do? Because this is a better camera than the FX6, and it's cheaper than the FX6, and the FX6 is much older. So are they going to come out with a smaller FX6 or FX6 Mark II with better features? The magnifying glass is on them right now, because if this has really good sales, which I'm thinking it will have pretty good sales, the ball's in Sony's court to bring out something that will compete against this camera, because this camera right here, this is going to be a problem. Not only that, there's the budget friendly cinema camera, which is the Blackmagic. I can't spell. I really can't spell. I can't type. Now, this is a new kid on the block. Now, Blackmagic is known for discounted prices, like really low prices for cinema cameras, and the Blackmagic Raw is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So there's things, you have changeable mounts. So you have the REPL, which it hikes up the price crazily. I don't know why. And you have the EF mount. I think I know why they did this. Because instead of getting a EF to PL adapter, that will make this distance between the sensor and the lens greater. They just made this locking and protruding a bit, so you have to kind of like go with the Airy PL and spend more money. Which is it? I guess it's only like $195 more. So I guess, yeah, it's not that bad. So you can choose which lens mount you wish, and I would think that Blackmagic would sell these separately so you can interchange them yourself, because I see it's like a Torx screw right there, so you can take it off yourself and then just change the lens mount. Right, so let's look at the specs of the Blackmagic. So you got dual sensitivity, dual ISO sensitivity. You got 400 and 3200. Full frame as well. You do have your Blackmagic RAW. You have dual slot CF Express Type B. So these are a higher capacity type of cards. So these are a lot better. You do have a 12G. Do you have, it uses Sony BPU batteries. Do you have an HDMI? No? Only SDI? I mean, that's not a problem for me, but see, it has two SDIs. That's a win. Heavy win. Huge win. So that's great. That's definitely great. And Blackmagic also released, or is releasing, this right here, the Pixis monitor kit for, like, if you're doing a monitor only, is $295. Super cheap. It's a 5-inch monitor. Let's see. Is it OLED? Or is it LCD? Display size is 1080p. It has all these false color, focus assist, screen marker zebras. It's USB-C, so you can buy a longer USB-C to mount it if you're like doing gimbal work. Yeah. Or if you're doing like an overhead shoot, you can like attach it to a longer USB-C cable, and you can mount that somewhere else. 1500 nits. That's pretty good. LCD. Now, if it was OLED, jeez. If this was OLED, nah, Blackmagic would have it. But yeah, I would possibly get a mounting kit. Now this is 645, and you can attach it onto the side and make it kind of like an EVF. So if you're doing like run and gun work with the Blackmagic, you can put that on your shoulder and you can have this to the side. Now, Blackmagic isn't known for autofocus. That's not its strong area. It's pretty good at streaming, put in the studio, because you can attach it to like a Blackmagic A10 Mini, and then you can control like the colors and etc. from the computer. So that's what it's good for, as well as like dock work and etc. These will shine better with cine lenses. So that's why I would go with like a PL mount. So you can get like a PL lens, you get anamorphic and etc. and Blackmagic RAW. Now Blackmagic RAW is pretty is a pretty good format, especially for the price. Now this camera, price to performance, there is nothing beating this. Nothing is beating this price to performance. So yeah, so you can have like a full set for under $4,000 or just $4,000 if you go with the Blackmagic. So again, what is going to happen with Sony and this FX6? That's $6,000. You're competing against the C80 and people who want to do RAW, because this still does S-Log, and people who want to do like RAW, you go to like a Blackmagic and you have the Blackmagic RAW, which arguably is a better image than the Sony, especially when you're color grading, etc. It'll produce a better image arguably than the Sony. This is overpriced at this time of year, and at this moment with all these other cameras coming out and etc. This is overpriced, and I cannot justify this price right here. So what will Sony do? What will Sony do? The ball is in Sony's court. Now, like I said, this is only pertaining to the prosumer category. Now, when it comes to consumer and professional, Sony isn't going anywhere. Sony is not going anywhere. When you got cameras like the ZVE 10, which is a consumer camera, like if you're doing things like Ecamm and you just need a camera set up for like Zoom meetings and etc., it's hard to beat this camera. And plus, it has an interchangeable lens. It's hard to beat this camera. You get Sony's wonderful autofocus. You just got to be careful and not push it too much because it might overheat and shut down on you. Remember, it's a consumer camera. And the image isn't as good as the FX3. You got the Sony Alpha. I don't even keep up with these things. Sony A6700. And a lot of these things have like the same sensor. Sony would put a brand new body, same internals, and sell it for a whole separate price. So you're gonna get good image quality, great autofocus with these consumer cameras. Sony isn't going anywhere in the consumer space. And the professional space with the Sony Venice. Sony Venice 2. A lot of people are moving over to the Sony Venice in like Hollywood. A lot of films are shot with the Sony Venice. Netflix as well, high budget Netflix films are shot with Sony Venice. Sony is here to stay in the professional space. There's only like 3 major cameras in the professional space. The Sony Venice, the Arri Alexa, you can do Alexa Mini LF. A new kid on the block is the Alexa 35, which has a better image. And you got your Red V Raptors and the Red Komodo X's and etc. Those are like on the cheaper spectrum of Hollywood films and what have you. But yeah, these things right here, they're not going anywhere. But I guess 2 out of 3 isn't bad. I mean, Sony would love to dominate all 3. I mean, and they still can dominate again if they just change the price of this FX6. This needs a price drop from yesterday. This is a price drop this definitely needs a price drop. Probably $2,000. If it was $399 or $3,998, this will be a nice, pretty good camera. Not even a pretty good. This will be a really nice camera. It'll be more appealing. But at $6,000, I can't justify this at all. So Sony might come out with something this year, later this month. Who knows? Sony is always dropping something. So yeah. So look out for that. But at the end of the day, if Sony drops this price, or if they come out with a Mark II version of this that's more reasonably priced, the consumers win. Because when these bigger companies start to drop prices and try to be aggressive, is to win us as clients and to win us as consumers. So we'll be saving money. So if you are on the market for FX6, I would say hold off of that. Just wait a bit and see what Sony does with this. They might come out with a new version and they might slash this price tremendously. So yeah, that is it. Sony needs to do something. that's the biggest takeaway of this. Sony really needs to do something. Yes, they have good prosumer products. Yes, they have really good autofocus. They have pretty good low light sensitivity. But the prices today is just not doing it. Yeah, and who knows? There might be some more price drops from other camera brands, and Canon might just come out with another camera, and just be at the throat of Sony, you know? So yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna catch you guys on the other one. Peace.